Hi, my name is Melanie Planter, and today I want to talk to you about my newest love. Of course, plants will always be one of my major loves, but lately fish have been my current obsession. So I grew up with my parents keeping a lot of fish. They had huge fish tanks full of. My mom liked really aggressive fish that would always be fighting, and they were just super aggressive. So at first, I was going to go that route. When I started getting into it again, I always kept like betta fish a lot, but I just recently got one. Eden asked for a fish, and I had already been looking at fish. I was like, and I've been saying over the past few years that I want to get fish and be like my mom, get an aggressive tank and all this. And I started doing all this research the last few months, and I started cycling my tanks and getting everything ready and set up. And then about 2 months ago, I ended up getting, I guess a little bit before 2 months ago, I ended up getting a pleco. I started with a snow white bushy nose pleco and 9 rummy nose tetra. So that was my little tank, my 75-gallon. And I was preparing it for discus. I fell in love with discus. I had the betta tank going, and before I kept bettas, I was one of those people who didn't do a lot of research and didn't think too much of it. I was young and I wasn't caring for them properly. They were in like 1 to 2 gallons, or smaller little fish bowls. I was one of those horrible. I shouldn't say horrible. Those ill-informed fish keepers, and so I didn't have I didn't make sure to get a heater or an air stone. Well, I guess they don't really need air stones, but a heater, filtration, all that. So this time I wanted to do it right. I researched and joined a bunch of groups, and made sure that I did everything I could to make sure that this betta is happy. My child named the Betta. So, and I always say beta, but apparently it's betta, I guess. I don't know, I guess everyone says it different. So, so I wanted discus this time. So I've had, after I cycled my tank, I got my rummy nose, I got the pleco. I ended up ordering a true zebra pleco, which is my love. His name is Apollo. He's so small and cute. All he does is hide all the time, but he's beautiful. So he gets along. I was afraid about how the two plecos would do together, but since the tank is big enough and I provided lots of hiding places, they're doing amazing. So so they're doing awesome. And then I added, first I got 10 of the rummy nose tetras, and one jumped out of, I put them in like this little bowl before I put them in the tank, because I was like so afraid to put them in the tank and I'm afraid they were gonna die. And I was like testing the water, and they had been in the bag for so long that I was just like, okay, let's get them in something else. So a little temporary place overnight, and overnight one jumped out, and I was so sad. So so we have 9 rummy nose tetra because of that. And then I ordered 6 of the Sturbay. I've heard them called different, Sturbay Corridora, but one was DOA, dead on arrival. So 5 of those. I ordered some discus. They arrived sick. I was able to save all but one. One was just too far gone, and thankfully when I had posted the discus, I didn't know they were sick. I did a ton of research, and people said they were like skittish and they would always hide, so I just assumed that my fish were in the corners of the tanks hiding because of that. And I was doing daily water changes, and they still were skittish and hiding, and they weren't getting better. And they were some of them, they were all really skinny when I got them, and that's what the people had pointed out. And they also had white poop, and I knew that white poop was a sign of them having some kind of intestinal things. And thankfully, when the people had pointed out that they were really skinny, I reached out to the seller, and he was like, oh, they're skinny because we starved them for a few days before they come to you. And I was just like, okay. But thankfully, the people online were very helpful, and they're just like, yeah, you need to treat these guys. It's probably too late for them. They looked that bad that people were saying they weren't going to make it through treatment. So thankfully, I treated them immediately. I raised their temperatures, treated them with API General Cure because the Metro I ordered wasn't going to arrive for a few days, and it kept getting delayed in transit because it was a holiday weekend. So I got wrecked. But yeah, the API General Cure ended up working. They immediately perked up and were amazing. But it was day 1 of treatment, one of them died, like I said. So that was like the only fish that died in my care. Thankfully, it wasn't really my fault because he had just got to me, and people were like, oh, what are your water parameters, all this stuff. I'm like, the rest of the fish in there are perfect. My water parameters, I change the water every day. No ammonia, no nothing. I don't let the nitrates get above 5, anything. So yeah, like I said, I was doing daily water changes, so my shit was good. So yeah, I was able to rehab them. It was good. But since, like, literally right after treatment, I did 3 rounds of API General Cure, and right after treatment, they were all just amazing, completely different fish. It was like night and day. They were just like coming up. They would eat out of my hand. They were like all social. They were swimming around the tank. They weren't hiding in corners at all anymore. They weren't skittish, crazy fish anymore. Like, yeah, they were perfect. So no more white poop. They gained weight. They've been gaining and gaining. They eat like crazy. That was the good thing, I think, and that's what saved them, is that they were still eating. So even though they were so sickly, they were still eating. So because a lot of the people, they were like, oh, I bet they're not eating when they look like that. And I'm like, oh, actually they are. So they're just like, yeah, there's hope for them, basically, if they're still eating. It's harder, I guess, once they get to the point where they're so sick that they can't even eat and they're not interested in eating, then it's like not a good sign. So I got lucky that they were eating. So yeah, so now they're my babies. I ended up buying some more from Jack Watley, and gosh, Gabe was amazing. Like, we kept getting wrecked because of the shipment delays, and FedEx was wrecking us, but I finally got them, and they were amazing. Shout out to Gabe. I'm like so grateful for him. Also shout out to Big River Pets in Richland, Washington. They're local to me, so I got 3 discus from them, 2 from Jack Watley, and the rest from somewhere else, and wouldn't recommend. But yeah, like, I'm so happy. They're my babies. The ones that I got locally and from Gabe they're all huge, healthy, fat. The rest of them, they're smaller, but they're gaining. They're doing better after treatment. So now, anytime I get discus or any fish, I'm just going to put them in the quarantine tank and treat them immediately. So some people just put them in quarantine tank. I'm just going to treat them. So to each their own, but I'd rather just be safe than sorry and get rid of anything that they might have to begin with. So highly recommend getting discus. Like, life-changing. Like, they've made me so happy. I also have some other types of fish. I'll talk about them in a different video, but people were like, oh, don't get into discus, like, unless you're just super seasoned and all this. Like I said, my parents kept fish, so I knew a little bit about fish, and then I kept my fish, but incorrectly, and then I just wanted to jump into fish, and thankfully I did a lot of research. So I would say, because a lot of people, they say don't get into discus if you're just getting into fish. I would say you can if you do your research ahead of time. So like I said, I researched for months and months. I should have done more research on like I researched them being sick, but I didn't know the signs to look for specifically, like when you first get them and knowing that they're sick. So I should have done that. But I researched everything else, like water, all this different stuff, watched all these videos, and I just hoped they wouldn't arrive sick. So like I said, it's all trial and error, and do your research and it'll work out fine. So if you research discus, I say jump into it and do it. They're not as hard as people say they are, as long as you keep up with water changes. So, and the water changes, it depends on how much you're feeding them. So I kind of do some heavy feeding, and I feed often, but that is because I'm trying to get those smaller ones to gain weight. so and grow bigger. Hopefully they're not stunted because it's such a hard experience early on, because like I said, they're like 2 to 2.5 inches, even though I order they were supposed to be like 3.5 inches, but it's okay. But the ones I got from Gabe and the one I got locally, those ones are like 3 to 4 inches, and they were just huge and fat, like I said. So the ones that are smaller, I'm hoping they're not stunted, because they arrived, they were sickly, and they also were delayed in transit, so they kind of had a rough start, but it's okay. We're gonna get them, and even if they are stunted, I don't care. They're my babies, so we're gonna work with them. Thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to talk more fish and planted tanks. See you later.